from hygiene to justice and even science. We're diving into thousands of years of history to see what people used to do, but don't anymore. Welcome back to my channel. Here are 20 things that were normal in the past, but are crazy today. Part 1. Hygiene and health. People used to bathe once a year. For most of human history, bathing wasn't something people did regularly. For ancient Greeks and Romans, it was a luxury reserved for the wealthy. For many others, it was simply too much effort, or there weren't enough facilities available. However, this changed during the 1840s, when hygiene awareness campaigns began promoting bathing as a way to prevent cholera and other diseases. Even then, it took some time for people to warm up to the idea. For those who grew up without regular baths, the change must have been a very difficult one. But these days, people who don't shower regularly are looked down upon and can be bullied or ridiculed. Doctors used to use leeches for everything. Bloodletting, the practice of removing blood from the body, was used by doctors for centuries to treat a wide range of illnesses. This practice, which involved the use of leeches to suck blood out of patients, was widely used until the late 19th century. Doctors believed that balancing the body's humors through bloodletting could cure ailments like fevers, headaches, toothaches, and even mental disorders. It wasn't until the germ theory of disease became accepted that the medical community moved away from bloodletting practices. Even so, bloodletting is still used today in rare cases, such as when a patient has a rare blood disorder. They used mercury as medicine. During the 16th to 18th centuries, mercury was a popular treatment for syphilis and other sexually transmitted diseases. The thinking was that the metal's ability to destroy lice could also kill off the bacteria causing STDs. But of course, this led to many unpleasant side effects, including mercury poisoning. Today, we know that mercury is highly toxic and can cause serious health problems, including kidney damage and death. So luckily, it's no longer used to treat any medical conditions. Tooth powder included ground bones. Tooth powders were a popular way to keep teeth clean and healthy long. Before modern toothpaste hit the scene, these powders, which often contained ingredients like charcoal or brick dust, were used by ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Romans. And believe it or not, they were even used during the Victorian era. During the Victorian era, people would use a variety of ingredients to whiten their teeth, including bones from small animals and even plaster. Though we now know that these ingredients aren't exactly nutritious, they were likely used because they were readily available and cheap. And hey, anything to get that pearly white smile, right? Part 2. Law and justice. Trials by ordeal. Until the late Middle Ages, trials by ordeal were a common way to determine a person's guilt or innocence. This bizarre legal practice involves subjecting the accused to a number of tests, such as being thrown into a body of water. If the person sank, they were deemed guilty, and if they floated, they were innocent. Talk about a risky way to decide someone's fate. The idea behind trials by ordeal was that God would intervene and help the innocent person pass the test. But of course, this left a lot of room for error. People who were actually innocent could easily drown, and those who were guilty could just float. Luckily, these days, we have more advanced methods for determining guilt or innocence. Public executions were family entertainment. For many years, public executions were a popular form of entertainment for people of all ages. Families would gather to watch criminals being put to death by hanging, burning, or even being torn apart by lions. Kids were considered old enough to attend these events as early as the age of 6. While these days, executions are usually kept private. Some countries still allow media coverage, but that doesn't mean kids can attend. Being left-handed was considered demonic. For centuries, left-handed people were persecuted because they were seen as being in league with the devil. This all started with the Bible verse, "The left hand is the hand of a wicked man." Left-handed people were often forced to convert to Christianity, and some were even burned at the stake. Today, we know that being left-handed isn't a sign of the devil, it's just a matter of genetics. Some researchers even believe that left-handed people are smarter than their right-handed counterparts. People were punished by being placed in a cage and dunked into a river. This punishment, known as ducking, was used to punish women accused of witchcraft. They would be tied up and suspended from a crane, so that they would be dunked into a river over and over again. This went on until the accused confessed to their crime or drowned. Luckily, this cruel punishment is no longer used today. Animal trials were real. Believe it or not, animals were actually put on trial for crimes against humanity. Pigs and rats were the most common culprits, usually accused of stealing food or committing arson. They would be given a trial by jury, and if found guilty, they were often sentenced to death. Now, you might be wondering why anyone would go to such lengths to prosecute a pig, but in the past, animals were seen as property and they didn't have the same rights as humans, so it made sense to hold them accountable for their actions. Part 3. Social and family life. Children worked full-time jobs. In the past, children were seen as little adults, and they were expected to work long hours like the rest of the population. At the age of 5 or 6, children would leave home and start working in factories or mines. They were responsible for operating dangerous machinery and were often injured or killed. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that laws were passed protecting children from working in dangerous environments. Today, child labor is illegal, and most countries have laws requiring that children attend school instead of working. People believed that bathing caused disease. For many years, people believed that bathing was a dangerous activity that could spread disease. This may seem crazy today, but it was a common belief throughout much of history. The idea was that exposure to water would open the body up to harmful bacteria, which would lead to illness. Because of this, people avoided bathing whenever possible, and instead relied on perfumes to cover up their body odor. Luckily, we now know that bathing is a healthy activity that can help prevent disease. Marriages were arranged before puberty. Arranged marriages aren't uncommon today, but they were much more common in the past. In many cultures, parents would arrange for their children to marry before they reached puberty. Sometimes marriages were even arranged at birth. Of course, this meant that many people were marrying someone they didn't know, and sometimes they had no say in the matter. Fortunately, arranged marriages are becoming less common today, but they're still happening around the world. Mourning required wearing all black for years. For many years, people were expected to wear all black when they were mourning the loss of a loved one. This custom was especially common in Victorian England, when it was common for women to wear black for at least 2 years after the death of her spouse. The idea was that black represented death and mourning, and that by wearing it, people would show respect for the deceased. Nowadays, people usually don't mourn for such a long time, and they often choose to wear brighter colors when attending funerals. Corpses were sometimes photographed with the living. During the Victorian era, it was common for families to have their deceased loved ones photographed. This practice, known as postmortem photography, involved placing the corpse in a lifelike pose and then taking a picture. The resulting images were often eerily realistic, and they served as a reminder of the deceased. This practice eventually fell out of style, as people began to find it creepy and disrespectful, but it's still fascinating to look at today. Part 4. Science and Daily Living. People once believed that bad smells caused all diseases. This may seem obvious today, but for centuries people really believed that bad smells were the cause of most illnesses. Known as the miasma theory, this idea dominated the medical community for hundreds of years. It wasn't until the mid-19th century that people began to realize that germs were the real culprit behind most diseases. To avoid being infected with a disease, people used things like perfumes and incense to cover up any bad smells. In ancient Rome, urine was used for cleaning clothes and teeth. Urine was a popular substance used in the Roman Empire for cleaning purposes. People would use it to clean both their bodies and their clothing, and they'd even used it to clean their teeth. The Romans believed that urine could help remove dirt and stains, and they were also aware of its antibacterial properties, so it makes sense that they would use it for cleaning. Nowadays, we obviously have better options when it comes to cleaning our bodies and clothes, but urine is still used in some industrial processes to clean things like glass. Lead makeup and utensils were common. For centuries, lead was a popular ingredient in makeup and utensils. People used lead acetate as a sweetener and lead carbonate as a white pigment in paint and cosmetics. They even used lead pipes to transport water. We now know that lead is extremely toxic and can cause serious health problems, including brain damage and death. So luckily, we've stopped using it in everyday items. People would use bread as erasers for writing. During the Middle Ages, people would use bread dough as an eraser for their writing. This was because the dough would stick to the ink and remove it from the page. Of course, this only worked with certain types of ink, but it was still a useful tool for scribes and writers. Bread dough was also used as an eraser for other purposes, like wiping chalk off a chalkboard. Nowadays, we obviously have better tools for erasing things like pencils and markers, but it's interesting to see how people used everyday items in creative ways in the past. Cigarettes were once marketed as healthy and doctor-approved. For many years, cigarettes were seen as a healthy and beneficial habit. Doctors even recommended them as a way to treat ailments like asthma, and even for It wasn't until the mid-20th century that the dangers of smoking became widely known. Today, we know that cigarettes are deadly and can cause cancer and heart disease. So thankfully, people no longer smoke them in the same way they used to. Which fact surprised you the most? What other crazy things were normal in the past? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.